I'm Matt Holzaffel. Well, who would have thought when COVID-19 began making its way across the U.S. 1 year ago that we would be where we are today? On March 11, 2020, a Montana resident tested positive for the virus while in Maryland. Now, there was some confusion about whether that would be counted as a Montana case or not. Now, 102,000 cases later, it doesn't really matter. But as we push forward with vaccinations, with 138,042 Montanans fully immunized as of this morning, what does matter is the way all of our lives have changed over the past year. Tonight, we're highlighting some of those lives and talking about the ways people have had to adapt as they remain resilient, waiting for the all clear. Many of us have faced decisions this past year we never could have imagined, but few have had to make decisions as impactful as the ones made by school leaders. We sat down with two of the people tasked with building a new model for learning for Helena students, not in months nor weeks, but in just a few days. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian explains how leaders work to balance the educational and emotional needs of children while protecting the health and safety of those across the district.
1 year ago Friday, Helena Public Schools Superintendent Tyler Ream says it began to sink into him just how big the impact of coronavirus was going to be.
I remember being in schools on Friday the 13th, no pun intended, and you could just feel the concern, this feeling that it's here or it's coming here, and we knew that we were going to have to make some decisions.
Though no one knew it at the time, that Friday would be the last day of normal in-person classes in the Helena School District. Tough decisions did start that weekend, as then Governor Steve Bullock ordered public school buildings to close, and the district prepared to transition to fully remote learning in just 3 days.
There's some layer of haze there in terms of remembering really clearly. I just remember this sense of disorientation.
Administrators had to set up online curriculum and start offering school meals outside the buildings. Ream says the week was chaotic, but he was left feeling proud.
Was it perfect? No. But the pride that I had came from the immense work that people did on behalf of children in the midst of this great uncertainty.
The Helena School District made the decision not to return to in-person classes before the end of last school year, a choice with a particular impact on seniors. After weeks of uncertainty, the district was able to organize in-person graduation ceremonies, though with restrictions. The graduates included School Board Chair Luke Muskevich's daughter.
It was incredibly important to students and their families to be able to honor, a strange, challenging, and in many ways unfulfilling year.
When the district returned to school in August, leaders expected they would be moving back and forth between the phases of their reopening plan. Instead, they spent most of the year in a hybrid model of online and in-person classes. Muskevich says they've received far more comment on when and how schools should be reopened than any other issue since he's been a trustee, and he acknowledged their decision had real impacts on families' lives.
Trustees always have in mind that they're responsible for the 8,000 students and in 1,000 staff in our district. But it's rare that a school board makes a decision that affects all of those people, including their families, in such a significant way.
It's also clear the pandemic is having an impact on kids. Last month, Ream highlighted data showing this year has negatively affected many students' social and emotional health, as well as their grades.
It's been the hardest school year physically, but emotionally as well. To me, it still is a very, painful topic to kind of go back and think through because, I don't want to cause pain for kids. I don't want to cause pain for families.
District leaders say it's likely some of the changes from the pandemic will endure. Ream said he thinks about how the seniors and other students who went through this year will carry these experiences forward.
I think it will create a generation of kids that sees things differently, that functions differently in a very positive way for us as a country.
Helena elementary and middle schools are now back to in-person classes 4 days a week. District high schools will be making that transition next week. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now let's talk about another group that's had a tough time. Families with school-age children have had to radically reimagine their lives. When schools had closed abruptly last March, some students would not return to the classroom for nearly a full year. And of course, they didn't know that at the time. MTN's Phoenix O'Connor visited a Helena family to see the impact that sudden change had on how they've navigated this past year.
I'm not going to lie, it has not been easy.
This is what remote learning has looked like for the Randash family.
2 elementary, 2 middle school, 2 high school, and then this guy who wants all the attention.
The pandemic presented many challenges for families, but with 7 kids at home,
We've had days of meltdowns, both kids and mom. We've had days where I just couldn't do it.
For kids like Felix, the distance learning model and the pressure to keep grades up could be a challenge.
It's tough because when you go to school, your teachers expect you done every assignment, and sometimes I forget to do that, and it's kind of hard.
And for mom and dad,
The kids go through, to give a perspective, 7 kids in the house. They go through about 2 gallons of milk a day, at least 1 loaf of bread.
planning additional meals for these 7 children became an added stress and possible financial burden to a family whose grocery bill totals about $1,500 a month. But help was available. The Helena School District was able to provide free meals for students over the course of the pandemic.
This program that Mr. Worthy got for Helena has helped us tremendously offset the cost of having them home all day and grazing food and eating all day long.
And the more time at home meant more time to connect as a family at home.
The thing about staying home is just playing.
And helping with the family's animals.
Times I just put my hand out there and pet them. And I sometimes feed them, play with them a little, or hold them.
And for now, a year out from the first cases and the first uncertain days of the pandemic, life is inching back to normal. A whiteboard helps the family stay organized.
It really helps know when each kid's meeting is, because they
And the
have different
kids
meetings
are
at
now
different
back in
times,
school
so
4 days a week. As she looks back a year ago,
I just remember going into spring break, and then we never went back. So I'm kind of nervous about spring break this year.
for the Randashes, when it's time to put the laptops away, the muck boots come on. She says for the best lessons were not necessarily from the online meetings, but hard work and time with their livestock
Okay, I guess I'm
and Montana way of life. In Helena, Phoenix O'Connor, MTN News.
Thank you.